I am calling the November 2018 Village of Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing to order. I ask that you please turn off your cell phones. For those in the audience, please do not engage in activities that may distract the board, the applicants, or their respective representatives. Please do not engage in loud or extended conversations during the proceedings. Any conversations by audience members should be conducted outside the hearing room. At the end of the applicant's presentation, the public will be given the opportunity to speak on relative issues involving the application. We also want to explain, maybe to just go over one more time, that we have timetables on the web page that you must get in your applications by, and if you're adjourned, any other information by. We are very strict on that, because that way we can review the information before it comes before us. All right, thank you very much, and let's begin. 49th, ZBA 0218, Spring Street, 49 Spring Street.
Madam Chair, I'd ask that be adjourned to the December meeting. I had a conversation with the applicant's counsel. There is some legal issues that we discussed at our last meeting that I need to discuss with the board, so if we could put that off till December, it would be appreciated.
Okay, it'll be adjourned till December, the December meeting. ZBA 14-18, Plateau, Water Street.
PowerPoint.
Who's got that?
PowerPoint, isn't it? And the mouse?
And Tracy got the mouse, please, that'd be great.
Okay.
Got it. How do I click on it to become bigger? No.
Yeah.
Or it goes to slideshow. Click on this.
Learn something new every day, right?
That's... I know there's... Wait a second. This is the wrong presentation.
Is this the one from last month?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the
Thought
one
I
from
saw
today.
that.
It's one of the things, sent me unless there's something else there. If you go back to the. Escape out of that and go to the files.
Down here? I can't see Tracy.
Hit the escape, oh. You click on this. Oh, that, yep.
Is
No,
there one
go back,
with
go
today's
back.
date?
Yeah, go back. The arrow.
I can't see it.
That, it's there. Oh, here. There you go.
That's it?
Yep. Down here? Yep, you got it.
All right. Good evening. For the record, Brad Schwartz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. We represent the applicant, Plateau Associates. I'm joined this evening by Paul Berthe from Petrocelli Engineering, the project professional engineer. We are here tonight for a public hearing, so I'll do a brief overview of the project for the benefit of the public before getting into the three variances that are before the board as part of the application. The project is 137 rental units located at the end of it's known as the North Water Street extension, 14 affordable units, that's the 10% requirement, a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. It's a 6-story building above garage, complies with the village's height requirements under the applicable zoning. After much discussion with the planning board, the applicant has committed to build a LEED Gold certifiable project. There's 193 parking spaces, both in garage and surface. The building has been carefully situated on the previously developed flat area of the site. That was as a result of the planning board site plan process. The idea was to try to minimize any new disturbance as well as maximize and preserve the views to and from the river. So the building has been situated again in the previously disturbed area of the site. And I mentioned that there are also improvements to North Water Street and the North Water Street extension to provide safe access to the project site. It will also provide improved access to the neighboring existing businesses. It's a 30-foot right-of-way with two 12-foot travel lanes, sidewalk, pavement, and the likes. Will be a brand-new roadway servicing this area of the waterfront. This is a overview of the site plan. This is the building, as I mentioned, 6 stories above the garage. This is the end of the new roadway with access to the garage here where the mouse is, as well as swings around the north side and circles in this way. You see some of the parking outside. That's the surface parking with the parking in the garage. This site plan also shows some of the perimeter landscaping. We provided, just for the benefit of the board and the public, a couple of the elevations of the proposed building. You see the materials would be masonry on the bottom with red stucco and glass on the rest of the building. This is the north and east elevations, and this is the, I'm sorry, that was north and east, this is south and west. I want to mention briefly 2 of the public benefits of the project. The applicant has committed to preserving in perpetuity 1.2 acres as a conservation easement. That would be preserved again in perpetuity pursuant to a recorded conservation easement with connectivity to Crawbucky Preserve. The applicant has committed to providing for trail access from within the conservation easement to within Crawbucky. That the exact location of that trail would be in consultation with the Village Parks Department, but that's as part of the project. The public benefit is the conservation easement with trail connectivity to the preserve, as well as what's been called an open-air pavilion, which is a structural resource recognizing the former pill factory that was on the site. This is a rendering of the latest design of the open-air pavilion. After a lot of discussion again with the planning board and other village agencies, the applicant has proposed incorporating actual architectural elements from the existing office building on the site into the pavilion to the extent reasonably practicable. The procedural status of the project, this is our 3rd time before your board. It's our first public hearing, but during the planning board's process, we wanted to come to your board twice already now for updates to keep your board informed during the process. So we were here in August for an initial presentation, we were here last month for an update in October. The planning board on October 23rd took a critical step in the project and adopted a secret finding statement. You'll recall the last 2 times that we were here, we acknowledged that your board couldn't take final action because the board hadn't completed secret yet. So now the planning board as lead agency has adopted a secret finding statement. So now your board and all the other outside agencies that have jurisdiction are now able to issue their approvals now that the secret process has been completed. I should mention that the planning board's consultants, Kellard Sessions, have reviewed all the site plans and the stormwater plan extensively over the past 6-8 months. We've answered all the questions. Mr. Hildenbrand can certainly address any questions tonight, but we believe we've addressed all the open site plan issues. Just like your board is considering the variances, the Board of Trustees is considering the special permit, the planned waterfront special permit that's required for the project will be before the Board of Trustees this month as well. And the planning board, we're hoping, will be considering a draft resolution of site plan approval at its November 27th meeting. So there were 3 variances required for the project. The first is a variance under New York State Village Law 7-736. That section requires satisfaction of a 2-part test. The first part is a site must have access to a street on an official map, and the second prong is that that street must be suitably improved to the satisfaction of the planning board. There's no question we're satisfying prong 2. We're not before the zoning board on prong 2. We're before the zoning board on prong 1. As you may recall, we were seeking an interpretation that we did have access to a street on an official map, but to try to simplify the process, as explained at our last meeting, we're not seeking the interpretation at this time. Instead, we're just going to pursue the variance application before your board and seek a variance due to the fact that there's at least a belief that, again, the site does not have access to a street on the official map. The North Water Street is not shown on the village's official map. The second variance relates to the 25-foot requirement for a buffer from a watercourse. We require an up to 88% variance on the east side of the project, of the proposed building. And third is a 5-foot building width variance. So those are the 3 variances. We have briefed the 5-factor test as they apply to each of those in our prior submission letters, but very briefly tonight for the purpose of the public hearing. This is the proposed road improvements. What is shown in gray is the existing road, and what's shown in red is the proposed 30-foot right-of-way, which shows the realigned and improved roadway. Again, 30 feet, 24 feet of new pavement with new sidewalk, curbing, stormwater, and all the other improvements built to village standards. We met with the fire department, so built to fire department standards. The fire department has signed off on this plan. So the road will also be raised to bring in the road out of the floodplain. So it's a new improved road, both to serve access to the project as well as the existing businesses. Here's the 5 factors as applied. We submit respectfully no undesirable change to community character. In fact, the new roadway will only enhance this area of the waterfront. The project is consistent with the village's zoning and comprehensive plan, and the use of North Water Street for access to the project site will also be consistent with other land use approvals issued by the village over the years, including the 1995 Frolic subdivision plat. There's no feasible alternative. This is the project site. It is located obviously in this location, and the project site cannot be utilized without accessing the site over North Water Street. No adverse impact on the environment. As mentioned, the road will comply with all village and fire department standards. New stormwater designed in accordance with the DEC design manual, which again Kellard Sessions has reviewed and I believe has no further comments on. And there's no self-created hardship. We submit the project site has always been located in this location. Second variance is the water course, the distance from a water course. This is the water course relocation plan. Where the mouse is located shows the existing water course in the location of the footprint of the former pill factory. We're proposing to relocate the water course to the north, away from the footprint of the proposed building. So the water course is here. It's open. It's an open channel where the mouse is currently situated, and from this point it will be underground in a new culvert, concrete culvert, and then it will follow this line where the mouse is, and then daylight again and discharge into the river where the existing culvert is currently located. So in this location, along this entire stretch, we meet the 25-foot separation requirement from again the building to the relocated water course. It's in these 2 locations on the side where the water course is closer than 25 feet to the building. On this location on the east, it's 3 feet from the building, and on this side, it's 17 feet. So the variance, the maximum variance we need is on the east side, 22 feet. I believe that translates to an 88% variance. Again, the 5 factors, no undesirable change in community character. The existing stream does not comply with zoning, so this relocation would only bring the stream into greater conformance with the zoning law. No feasible alternatives. We looked at moving the stream farther to the north. That would only result in greater disturbance, including greater steep slope impacts. No adverse impacts on the environment. The new culvert has been sized to manage the 100-year off-site stormwater flows. Same discharge point to the Hudson River, and I believe again Kellard Sessions has reviewed the stream relocation plan, and all engineering comments regarding it have been addressed during the secret process. Third is the building width. These 2 slides show views to and from the Hudson River, and that's the intent of the section 270-23F2. And again, the 5-factor test that applies. 1, no undesirable change in community character. As mentioned earlier, the building will be located in the previously developed area of the site, constructed into the hillside to minimize view shed impacts, and it's positioned perpendicular to the river, again, to preserve view corridors to and from the river. That really captures the intent of this subsection of the zoning law. There are no other feasible alternatives. The building has been designed to achieve the 137 unit density within zoning parameters. In terms of substantiality, it's a 6.6% variance. And 4th factor, no adverse impact on the environment. We submit the additional 5 feet is not appreciable. Most views towards the river will look over the proposed building through the trees, and the dominant view from the river looking east would be into the natural wooded hillside behind the building. And 5th, again, hardship is not self-created. So those are the 3 variances that are required. Those are the 5-factor tests as applied to each of them. Now that the planning board has completed seeker, your board is in a position to vote tonight. and we would respectfully ask that your board close the public hearing and vote to approve the 3 variances this evening.
Do you have any comments to make before we start this? You don't need to, gentlemen? Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Please give your name and address. Do you promise to tell the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Name and address.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. My
Miguel.
name is Miguel Hernandez. I reside at 10 North Water Street, adjacent to this proposed project. And I'm here to say that if this project is approved or these variances are made, I will be adversely impacted by the construction of a 6-story building. We don't really know the height of it, but my house is at a height of 50 feet above on the cliff. So we don't know, they haven't provided you with the entire height, but my view to the river will certainly be blocked, or could be blocked, by this building unless we know exactly what the height of this building is. In any event, I will probably be looking, since my house is very close to this project, I'll be looking, or the people who are living there will be looking into onto my property, and my view will be blocked. I do have some other concerns, related concerns, with regard to this building, with regard to this plan. The movement of these water course is certainly something that you should have additional information on, because this is a tide-affected stream. It's affected by the tides of the Hudson River, and as you know, it goes out to the river. And if you move it closer, you will be moving it closer to the neighboring property. And I don't know if something could happen here in his building. I don't speak for him, of course, but it seems to me that moving a water course is a very complex thing, and it could have serious impacts on the neighboring property should anything happen to that stream. I think that the Corps of Engineers, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, might have something to say about moving such a stream. As I'm sure you do appreciate how complex this project is and its long history, and the reason it has such a long history is because there have been any number of stories told to you about this project that don't quite square with the facts. You were told, for instance, that the destruction of the, you saw a picture of a proposed pavilion, historic pavilion. This impacts the entire village of Austin because that piece of property, or that particular building, is not only on the National Register of Historic Places, but it is also on the Village Historic Register. And the village law is quite strong. In fact, it is stronger than the federal law. And it requires that any change to the exterior of this building, that this project must pass, they must appear before the Historic Preservation Commission, and they must ask for a certificate of appropriateness. So far, this applicant has refused to come before this board in a formal way and to submit an application of certificate of occupancy. So there are lots of boards involved with this. It's not only the planning board and your board, but there's a historic preservation commission board that needs to be that should be consulted before you make any decision. And it's my opinion that these boards should meet together as a group to discuss this project, because what one board does, it may impact on what another board does. As I said before, it's a very complicated project, and I'm here to urge you not to take any actions with regard to this project until and unless there is a meeting of the minds of all of the land use boards. This project not just doesn't affect this area, but it is something, as a historic resource, it's something that affects the entire village. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that's wish to speak on this?
Madam Chair, if I could briefly respond to some of the comments that were just made, please.
Go ahead.
The first, in terms of the views, the planning board again extensively reviewed potential visual impacts during the secret process, recognized that from the commenter's home, views would be preserved to the river in all directions. The secret documents did acknowledge that looking north, there would be a view to the top of the building, but the planning board found that all visual impacts would be properly mitigated and that view to the river would not be blocked. The height complies, it's in, again, the secret documents, the height of the building is 69 feet, I believe. It's within the proper zoning parameters. Paul, am I correct on that?
That's correct.
Mr. Birthday is confirming that. In terms of the water course, I just want to be clear, the discharge point to the Hudson River, and Paul and Mr. Hildebrand, correct me if I'm wrong, the discharge point is exactly the same. It's just relocating one stretch of it to the north to move it away from the footprint of the building. It's ultimately going to then tie back into the same discharge point at the river where it discharges today. Army Corps does have jurisdiction, and that's another outside agency that the applicant would need to seek a nationwide permit from as a condition of part of the planning board's site plan approval. So it's correct, we do need Army Corps approval, and that's been disclosed as part of all the secret documents in the list of the table of approvals. With respect to the pavilion, we presented tonight, because that's a public benefit that we believe is being offered as part of the project, but that's not a jurisdictional matter before the zoning board. Again, the three matters before your board are the three variances that we went through. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, the Paul Bertay from
Please. I'm sorry, your name?
Paul Bertay from Petrosil Engineering. Just as another note about the stream, the existing stream is already modified. It was a stream that went under the existing building and provided hydrodynamic power. So it's already a man-made stream. There's portions of it that are in underground right now. So it's something that is just being relocated as part of this project. I just thought it was important for you guys to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? No, not again.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, did you recognize me?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
I just want to see if somebody else wants to speak
Okay,
on it.
sure.
Okay, so from what I understand, that we are waiting for some information from the planning board?
There was a referral letter from the planning board with regard to their position with regard to the three variances that were presented, and that is awaiting the signature of the planning board chair. So that has not yet been forwarded to the ZBA.
Okay, did anybody have any questions? Do you have any questions? Turn on your mic.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'm sorry.
And we actually have Steve Rabel is here. He's actually special counsel. So
Okay.
either one of us, but you can also address to Steve as well.
Are you the same gentleman who made opposing arguments the last time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do we
Well, not
have,
opposing, but yeah.
do we have any opposing arguments we're gonna hear? I'd rather reserve it if he's gonna speak in opposition.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, I'd rather reserve that.
I don't think he's gonna speak in opposition, right?
No, and just to clarify, the issue that I had opined on previously was the question of interpretation, which was that we felt that a variance was needed, but that is no longer before the board. They have reserved the right to raise that later, but currently they are applying for the variance. So we're in agreement with that strategy.
Okay.
We thought better to just agree to disagree, and we thought it would be a sort of a simpler process, frankly, to, again, take that position and pursue the variance.
Okay.
That way, we don't have to get into opposing arguments and the back and forth on it.
I wonder if I might just pose a question. And Steve, this is both for you and maybe for Brad. And that deals with the issue that Mr. Hernandez raised about the water course. You mentioned about the Army Corps of Engineers. if this board grants a variance, but could the ACOE come back and say, we don't want it moved at that particular location? In other words, I just want to make sure that
Right.
this board granting a variance does not impact upon what the ACOE may turn around and ultimately say. So is there a cart before the horse type situation here? I'm not familiar with it, that's why I'm asking the question.
I don't believe there is, and Paul, correct me, but what the Army Corps is looking at is the discharge point, right? Where it's going to be discharged into the Hudson River. And so I don't believe the Army Corps is weighing in on the relocation of the stream, but Paul, do you have any thoughts on it?
There is an application for the relocation that's under this jurisdiction, and until we get some kind of feedback from them, I can't say for sure whether or not they will say yes or no. However, the application is modifying an existing stream that is not natural, it's not a natural watercourse. So it's our professional opinion that moving it to outside of the building footprint would be something that's practical and reasonable. But again, I can't speak until we have the
And Mr. Khan, this variance could always be conditioned upon receiving the Army Corps' approval, just like the planning board site plan resolution would be conditioned upon receiving the Army Corps approval. So therefore, if the Army Corps, for whatever reason, did not approve the stream relocation, and then the exact location of the stream was adjusted, if it was any greater of a variance, we would need to come back before the board for an amended variance. And that's typically what happens when you have differing outside agency reviews.
Okay, couple things. You have any more questions? Wait a second, because we're not necessarily going to close this.
Okay, well, just one last question. I think Stuart did touch on my first question. The second question is, you mentioned LEED certifiable. Is there any more weight we should give to this deliberation based on your LEED certifiable that you stated?
So LEED certifiable, again, is not directly tied to any of the three variances, but I would submit that when your board is looking at the three variances in the bigger picture of the overall project, we mentioned the LEED Gold certifiable, we mentioned the pavilion, we mentioned the road improvements, we mentioned the conservation easement. We wanted your board to have a full picture of what we think are the benefits that will be enjoyed by the public as a result of the project. So that's why we wanted to mention it and give the board the overview of the entire project and not just limit the discussion tonight just to those the three variances, but at the end of the day, it's those three variances that are technically before your board for your jurisdiction.
All right, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why we're not even going to close this public hearing tonight, okay? Number 1, we have a time limit on submitting proposals, and as what I've had discussions with council, that your variances were in, but your variance sheet is from November 8th, and we needed to be able to see this in front of us before November 8th. Number 2, we're waiting for a letter from the planning board on their referral letter.
Recommendation letter, right.
So we're going to continue waiting for that, and we're going to leave this public hearing. And number 3 is we are a 3-member board tonight. So we'll leave this open, the public hearing, we'll adjourn the public hearing, and hopefully by then we'll have gotten all our answers for any questions that we have, if we want to have any attorney-client discussions on this issue.
Madam Chair, if I could, on the 3-member board, there is still a quorum tonight that your board could vote with 3 members.
I gave you the 3 reasons. We're going to adjourn this public hearing. Thank you.
Can I respectfully address the other 2 items?
It's not going to change, so you can address them in 2 minutes, in a 2-minute window. But if I were you, I would step back and I would wait.
So let me ask that, because this is my, frankly, first time before your board. So in terms of, on any upright, so logistically, does your board vote to authorize the preparation of resolutions for the following meeting? In other words,
Yes.
So could we, what I would ask then, I would like to be able to secure a resolution, an approval at the next meeting. So I guess whatever would be needed tonight in order to ensure that we could obtain a positive vote at the December meeting.
No, especially since you're waiting for other things anyway. You're waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers, so no.
Well, the Army Corps of
We
Engineers,
will follow our procedures that we have in place, which we're very comfortable with, and it took us a while to make some of the changes that we needed to make. So what I would advise you to do is come back in December. We will have spoken with council. If we have any more questions, we'll have at least a fourth person on the board. And we'll have our letter, most importantly, we'll have our letter, a referral letter from the planning board.
so all I'm asking respectfully is that, assuming that letter comes in,
We don't do it that way.
and now that we have the zoning worksheet form that is submitted, that a resolution be ready for consideration at the December meeting.
The practice of the board, Mr. Schwartz, is there is a vote taken, resolution is then prepared and is voted on at the following meeting. We don't, this board's procedure is not to have a resolution prepared in advance of a vote, so it's just not.
We're not gonna make an exception that would then create, it would be, everyone would want that then. So we'll stay with our current practice that we have. And you may or may not get an affirmative vote, so. We'll adjourn the public hearing until the December meeting. Thank you. We're going to switch around the two next applications. ZBA 2517 Prospect Avenue is seeking an extension on their area variance.
Yes.
So you want to step up to the mic and give out your name and number, and do you promise to tell the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do. Okay. Want to step in now?
Steve, we'll be in touch with you.
Sounds good. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Steve.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Your name, sir?
My name is David Arango. I'm working for Rui Arellano Architects, and I represent Mr. Oris Cortes in 78 Prospect Avenue.
Is his mic on? Yeah.
No.
It's dead. Just give him one of these. Take one. No, I'm not using it.
Yes. Okay, my name is David Arango. I'm working for Rui Arellano Architects, and I'm here to represent Mr. Oris Cortes in 78 Prospect Avenue. Mr. Cortes has the owner of this property. He's proposing a modular home here, and he's asking for two extra variants because he has a application before, and they gained the variance for width and side yard and front yard, and they asking now for another two variants. One is for driveway setback, and the previous area.
You're asking for an additional variance?
Yes.
No, because I thought that it was just
We're just going for the extension today. We're not doing the other variances.
No. We
Just the
came.
extension.
We're looking for the extension because we want to go.
They want to do that.
Yeah, okay.
So this is
So
just.
you're not here tonight to get the,
No.
because I don't
No,
have
no,
a
we-
paper on that.
We,
Okay.
but they told me, I need to come back and present the
Yes,
project
okay.
to get
And is he
extension.
interested in the 6 months?
Yes, that's why he asked
Yeah.
the timing.
Original variance was given, but, okay. Okay, so this will be your second extension?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any plans on actually for doing putting the modular home in?
We request, the things, but the owner is, pursuing the project, and we have on a previous meeting with, the members of the board, we explain we have a little situation with the Bellevue Avenue, and we try to resolve all the issues. We submit the application for Bellevue, and we are for the meeting in December.
Okay,
There had been a meeting with Mr.
you need
Curtis.
to talk into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Madam Chair, there's been a meeting with the owner, Mr. Curtis, Planning Director Corbett, and myself. There are issues with regard to the property on Bellevue. We believe that the prudent thing at this point was to get an extension with regard to the variance that had already been granted by this board.
Right.
So that the issue specifically as relates to parking for those properties can be resolved, because currently the parking for one property is used for the building that's there, and if another building is put up, it would affect the ability to park at those locations. So this at least provides the additional time for the one variance, or we can work out the other issues that exist.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone here that's here to speak on Prospect Avenue, ZBA 2517? All right, so this is simply for an extension of the variance.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion?
No.
Discussion? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the extension of the variance for Prospect Avenue?
Motion to approve the variance?
All right, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now,
Madam Chair, the last matter on here is ZBA 27-17, Walter Guerrero, 182 Spring Street. I'd ask that we could have an advice of counsel session with the board in the adjoining room to discuss this particular matter, which has previously been before this board.
so we're going to go and have an advice of counsel in the conference room. You can turn that off until... Now, ready? We'll continue with the meeting. ZBA 2717, 182 Spring Street. Applicant is seeking an interpretation to reestablish a laundromat on the first floor of a two-family in the two-family zone.
Mr. Guerrero, why don't you come up for a second, okay?
Please give your name and address, and do you promise to tell the truth under penalty of perjury?
My name is Walter Guerrero. You know, I live in 15 Washington Place in White Place, but my property is 182 Spring Street.
Okay.
Mr. Guerrero, if I could just ask you this, do you intend to open this as a laundromat? If you're granted the interpretation you want, you will be operating a laundromat at this location?
Yes,
Are you prepared to go to the building department and get the necessary permit as soon as possible?
I did all that.
You have the permit already?
No, no, we don't have the permit yet, but I did the application.
It's already in.
You've already submitted the papers?
Yes, we submitted the
Good.
paper.
I just want to make sure. That would be interesting. Okay. And are the two apartments upstairs already, are there tenants upstairs?
Yes,
You have tenants upstairs?
yes, it's the same people. When I buy it, it's the same people live there.
Okay, fine.
And there's two families, right? Two different apartments? How
Yeah,
many
there's two
apartments are
families.
upstairs? Two apartments,
Yes,
two families.
yes, two families, two different apartments.
Madam Chair, based upon our discussions, and I would then, I think if I can just summarize what we discussed in the back, there had been a prior determination by this zoning board to deny a use variance. And there's no question that that denial was correct and was appropriate by law and based upon the application. The applicant is now here and has referred back to an earlier determination from the Zoning Board of Appeals in June of 2015 relating to the prior owner who was seeking an interpretation of Section 270-39G regarding prior non-conforming use and the expiration or the termination of that. Based upon the discussions that we had during advice of counsel, it would be the recommendation to find that the prior non-conforming use is continued on the condition that all actions are taken within 6 months to obtain necessary permits and commence construction with regard to the laundromat. If the necessary actions are not taken within 6 months, the prior non-conforming use will expire as of right, and the building will go back to its required zone use, which is a T-zone in that area, and you would not have a commercial use. So that would be, you would be able to get 6 months, but it must be understood that the prior decision on a use variance was correct by this board. But based upon the earlier decision in June of 2015, the Zoning Board of Appeals would give you 6 months to continue to demonstrate that you are basically going to open up that laundromat at that location. So the building department would consider your permit, and then you'll start with the construction. But it has to be within 6 months from this time. Is that understood?
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, the board has to vote on that.
But you understand what he's telling you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And you got that in the back as well?
Definitely.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to, how do we phrase it, the interpretation?
Yeah, just do we approve the interpretation as I had presented, and I'll draft a resolution for the board.
I move to approve the interpretation as interpreted by Corporation Counsel.
Thank you very much.
In the interpretation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a safe night.
You too.
Take care.
So that's our meeting for November 2018. I want to thank you very much. We apologize again for starting late, although on camera you will not even know that we started late because we're not live. So we will see you on December, oh wait a minute, back up.
We got two last things to do.
Back up, I need the approval of the minutes and resolutions of the October 9th meeting. Do I have a-
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we need to discuss, just have a quick discussion on the calendar. We know that the planning department has put together a calendar and has looked at all possible holiday situations and taken into consideration, and it does not mean at any time that that we can't switch a date or, a date or have some situation come up. So, do I have approval of the calendar for 2019?
Motion to approve the calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll get it published.
Now we can have a good night, and we'll see you on December 11th, 2018. And thank you very much.